A beautiful evening, everyone. I'm so glad that we can have this opportunity to have satsang from time to time. And it is important to understand what satsang is, at least in my own understanding, so that we know exactly where we are and why we are, what we're doing here together. Very often when I come to sit on a chair for the opportunity to speak, this is all about a certain teaching that needs to be delivered, a certain system or method or insight that needs to be explained in detail and practiced in detail, and this concerns our developmental part, the part that is in a constant state of development, growth, learning. So there is a certain dual state. There is us, who are students, we all are, and what we learn, the thought. You see, so then we need to learn about something, to understand something. Satsang is not about this dual state, and it is not about teaching a particular subject. It is about us taking a very deep, very intense, focused look into our innermost being. It is as if we are gazing into the centerpiece, the core, the heart of our being, penetrating through all the layers. And therefore in satsang the subject is ourselves and the object is ourselves. It is the most intimate event, and therefore there is absolutely no teaching. If it is about anything, it is an anti-teaching. It is, in a way, a teaching that destroys itself after the use, you see. Therefore, it is true that I'm going to guide us through meditation, and that there's going to be a talk in the conventional sense, and there are going to be questions and answers, as many as possible. That's always my favorite part. But this is only on the surface. Because what we truly do in satsang, if we can call this do, is that we share our being. It is a sharing of being, and it should be said very clearly, not the being of some teacher. Because sometimes we come and we are testing the teacher, their presence, what they are, and so on and so on. Their quality of their being, they have such a powerful being, such a silent being, such a whatever being. But that is not important at all, because that means that satsang is of absolutely no value. You have just met a certain unusual individual, or at least someone who is convinced that they are very unusual individuals, whatever. But the thing is that if we fail to understand that satsang is about sharing the being and not someone else's being, then satsang becomes extremely valuable. At first you may think, okay, if this is not the teacher's being, then this is my being, my innermost. But when you delve deeply into the innermost essence of satsang, you realize that this being is neither the teachers nor the listeners. It is everywhere. It really is everywhere. At any given moment. But the problem is that we are so oblivious to it. You see, in daily life, we are so occupied with the superficial layers of action, of thinking, of emoting, that we are unaware, or that we are mostly unaware of if I may say so, the most beautiful or valuable or essential element of life. Actually, the only element that makes everything valuable, meaningful, and beautiful. Without this, we have fleeting moments and changing moments of pleasure and pain, sadness and happiness. Good things happen, bad things happen. by the end of the day, it is all counted as one big dream. We take a look after 80, 90 years if we're lucky. I don't know if that's lucky, but if we get to live that long, even a life of 80, 90, 100, 120 will feel to you like a completely brief experience. Everything was just flowing so efficiently and superficially, because it didn't have the core of the timeless that could make it substantial, you see. Substantial, to give every moment gravity, to give every moment weight, volume, depth. So this is what we do in Satsang. We concentrate the energy, our attention, our heart, making the mind submit to the heart's attention in order to be able to value this massive presence of life. The reality that holds life together, that not only in its presence, things in life really make sense. To be aware of all that requires a tremendous but also extremely delicate state of sensitivity, listening and silence. We cannot be noisy. We cannot have too many questions, too many thoughts, too many doubts, too many contradictions. We have to somehow settle all that in order to be able to notice that which forever eludes the noisy parts of our mind, the noisy parts of our heart. And then satsang becomes a preparation for our own moments in life without satsang. When you walk out the door and you look at everything, when you walk on the street, before you go to sleep, when you wake up tomorrow, then you have this fragrance as a living memory inside your heart, and then it's your question whether you are going to pursue this, to respond to it, to make friends with it, and not to just wait until the next satsang or the next teacher. You see, the next exciting teacher. So although we have already started meditating, since meditation is not a specific technique, it is a certain focus. A certain orientation of the mind and the heart. But let's start with a certain guided meditation that contains within it this evening's talk, this evening direction or point. What the ancient scriptures, both Hindu and Buddhist, tell us is that the innermost reality, some call it the innermost self, some call it the innermost reality, the innermost nature, it doesn't matter. Depends if you're a Hindu or a Buddhist. That this innermost reality is to be found deep within our heart. Now this sounds very often metaphorical, like in our heart, in our innermost or deep inside us, but they actually did mean inside the heart. And this is what we are going to do now. Not too long, I think, meditation on the innermost heart, or what in the Upanishads is called the inner cave of the heart. The inner cave of the heart is a very good description, a very good image, because inner cave is like something that you need to cross something to reach a hidden point. And this point is usually unknown, uncharted, and we then begin to reach that hidden part of ourselves that may be very small, but actually contains within it the entire universe. So let us do this, or rather direct our attention to it. We will close our eyes. And as we breathe slowly and deeply, allowing every part of our body to relax, to loosen up with every breath we take. We will direct our attention to the area of the heart, which in energetic terms is located in the lower part of our chest, just in the middle, midway between the two breasts. So when we first get in touch with this area, this outer part of our heart is actually quite familiar to us. We know it from daily life because we feel it, sometimes aching, sometimes loving, sometimes attached, sometimes hurt. We know what it feels like to get beaten or become or have our heart bruised by events, by people. So we know what it feels like when someone says a cruel word or when we feel betrayed, offended. This is the part of our heart that is in direct contact with all these events, these moments. And this layer is susceptible to change. Sometimes it is happy, sometimes it is closed. Because it is so susceptible to change, so vulnerable, we often build an energetic wall just out there between the world and our heart, so that we do not get hurt too much. And that we hide our vulnerability. But now we will move deeper into that heart area. We will move from the outermost layer, piercing through the chest, moving to a place behind the chest. And we'll feel how the more we are penetrating through the chest, the deeper our feelings become, the more intimate we feel. At the beginning, we may still pass through a certain medium layer, the layer of our deeper feelings and images about ourselves, about others, deeper memories that we carry, sometimes even perhaps ancient memories. It is like the storehouse of our heart. Everything that's been accumulated. But now let us move even deeper. Now we are beginning to approach the inner cave of the heart. Somewhere, just at the center of the body. At that point, behind the chest, behind these two layers, of temporary hurts and joys and deeper memories and feelings. There we are able to enter the cave. It is like an energetic spot. And when we enter it, it may feel so deep that it's almost elusive, inconceivable. And we can only get in touch with it by falling into it, by letting go, by resting inside it. So don't try to enter the cave. Just feel how you are drawn into it. Now feel how when you are there, you are also you have also moved away from those parts that can get affected and bruised and hurt. This cave is so deep, so hidden, that no memories, no traumas can reach it. There in that inner cave, there is a different feeling of you, a different sense of you. It is not the familiar daily you. It is a profound, silent. And intimate you. In this point, you are touching indestructibility. You can visualize this point as if it were the source of your light of being. As if in this dark hidden cave there is also a very delicate but condensed form of light. Like a concentrated drop. For a moment you can feel how everything disappears. Everything else disappears. Outside and around this concentrated light. As if there is only pure space. And the hidden light of the heart's cave. So retaining this sense of of the inner cave. We can feel how we once again become embodied, return to a physical form, the breathing, the presence of the body. So that we can slowly and gently open our eyes. Try sometimes perhaps to do this meditation just before going to sleep. When all our energies return to become encapsulated inside the hidden cave of the heart, this makes our sleep profound. It is as if we collect all our energies, all the mundane energies. So let's talk about something. Let's have an insight meditation, building on this heart meditation, on this inner cave, because it's all connected, everything that we say. And the first thing we will talk about is what I call the wrinkled mind and the wrinkled heart. You know what wrinkles are, right? But there is a deeper phenomena, because it is natural for the body as it ages to get some wrinkles, right? Here and there, sometimes plenty of them, but depends on our constitution. But there is something else. There is the wrinkling process that takes place inside our mind and our heart. And this is the result of the fact that throughout the years, at the beginning perhaps we come a clean slate. We come, let's say, supposedly we come a clean slate, but we come, let's say, brighter and lighter. We certainly don't have wrinkles. And then slowly we begin to become bruised, to become beaten by life. There is the toughness of the world. And the world, living in the world is tough, and there are challenges, and there are demands, and pressures, and insults, and disappointments, frustrations, things we were hoping to become, things we were hoping to achieve, and we haven't. And all the baggage of our early memories and not so early memories, and so on and so on. And with every such experience, we get wrinkles from the inside, you see. It's like we are becoming bruised. There are scars. There are imprints. All these bruises and all these many experiences and memories make us sometimes very consciously and sometimes mostly unconsciously tougher. We learn to toughen ourselves, to make ourselves to make our hearts tougher, make our minds tougher. We become hardened, you see. And this comes along with some bitterness, or sometimes even cynicism, because it's as if we have grown adults. We've become adults. Now we have lost our innocence. Now, of course, the body itself does become bruised from time to time and even scarred, right? Most of us have some scars somewhere in the body. That is natural. And it is also natural to have wrinkles from the outside. But then, although sometimes we fight it very strongly, but then we have also our mind bruised and our heart bruised, you see. And that is where the process begins to penetrate, to enter into the way our mind is, the way our heart is. Some of us, the more we approach the departure, the more we approach the physical departure, death, the more we become like clenched fists. We are already so tough, so bitter and bruised. And so wrinkled from the inside, you see. And the question that I would like us to hold in this satsang this evening is whether the mind and the heart can be without wrinkles, can be unbruised, and can be free from this process of hardening, toughening up. Because sometimes we have already so many disappointing experiences and so many frustrations that it's as if we feel that it is no longer possible to start anew. You see, we become already so suspicious and so wary of life that it seems to us impossible to start anew, to trust again, to begin afresh. So this process sometimes feels to us hopeless or irreversible. It's as if at a certain point we've reached a stage from which you can no longer start anew, be that clean slate, you see? And the thing is that it is possible. It is possible if we begin to get in touch with certain deeper parts of ourselves. One is this inner cave, right? Because this inner cave has a tremendous message. It has a therapeutic message. It tells you, yes, you are bruised here. This is where you get the hits, the blows. Life does reach you there, but then there is a point from which life can no longer enter. Your history can no longer enter. Memories can no longer enter. And that is where your true self resides. So sometimes our experience is that our mind and our heart, they are shaped by our history, you see? Right? The memories, the experience that we go through, they give shape to our mind and heart. Our mind receives the shape of the events and the reactions and the situations, and eventually it becomes this kind of, of shaped structure. Not only our own history, but also collective history. We read the news, we become frustrated, we feel that the world is upside down, and all these events, all these impressions give shape. But the beautiful thing is that the mind and the heart, they don't have a shape, you see. The essential nature of the mind is unshaped, it is shapeless. So this is what we need to be reminded of. There is a certain element, a certain part of the mind, a certain part of the heart that doesn't take the shape of events, doesn't take the shape of memories. Doesn't take the shape of time. So there is a lot that has been said about our traumas, our difficult memories, and how we should heal them, how we should approach them. But then I don't think there has been sufficient attention dedicated to that which cannot be traumatized, that which has nothing to do with traumas. And this is who you are. Now, what is this part that doesn't get traumatized, that hasn't been traumatized, that hasn't been shaped? This is actually so simple that it can very often escape our attention, because this part is always available to us. It is, first of all, the part of us that is aware, the part of us that watches, the source of our attention. This part hasn't been affected by anything. You see, you can think of it in this way. There is everything that we observe throughout life. Everything that we see the body, we are aware of the body that becomes bruised and scarred. We are aware of our superficial heart being harmed and offended and all that, and it accumulates. We are aware, and this awareness remains from the beginning of time until now completely fresh. It is not the part that you're aware of, the body, the mind, the memories. All this happens to everything in you that you can observe. But then there is you. You are the part that is the light of consciousness. And this is not some kind of an extremely inaccessible state. Right now, this part, this element that you are, is what makes this meeting possible. You see, in the most basic sense. Right now, the awareness that you throw like light makes this thing possible. When I have a certain trauma, a certain difficult experience, there is yes, the traumatized part, but then there is also the part that is aware of all the happening, right? Now, this part has nothing to do with memory. And this part, when you begin to go very deeply into the inner cave, it begins there. The light of consciousness begins there. So it is the part that makes everything possible, that throws light on everything. And is not a part of the process of life. There is in Buddhism, in Tantric Buddhism, this innermost heart or inner cave of the heart is called the very subtle mind. You see, there is the gross mind. The gross mind is mind that we're so used to. Then there is a subtle mind, which is the mind of concepts, the mind of ideas, the mind that can think abstractly. But then there is the very subtle mind. It is the deepest layer of the mind. And this is the light of consciousness. When we sit for meditation, this is all we basically do. We aspire to steep ourselves, to return to this very subtle mind. And now we know that it has a certain location. It has a geography. It is deep inside the heart. So what is so extraordinary about a very subtle mind is that it is unaffected by memory, unaffected by events, and therefore it cannot get wrinkles. You see, it cannot age. It cannot become bitter and tough, overly disappointed, cynical with life. This is why, you see, this is where therapy meets spirituality, because if we are beginning to get in touch with this very subtle mind, we can also get in touch with that part of us that can really start anew, that can really start afresh. Otherwise, we can try to heal for thousands of years these parts that have been bruised. But the more we focus on them without realizing that we have an essentially completely free part, it becomes quite futile. Because it's as if we are trying to heal ourselves without remembering that we are already healed, you see. And this makes it very, very difficult and a very partial work of therapy. There is a certain quote that I would like to share with you about this. This is a quote by Tilopa, the great Tantric Buddhist from 1,000 years ago. And he says, "Darkness accumulated over 1,000 eons, that whole mass of darkness is dispelled by a single lamp. Likewise, our own clear light mind instantly dispels ignorance, harm, and obscuration amassed over eons. So what we hear here is that you can have darkness accumulated for generations. All our experiences, all our memories, all our bruises, all our disappointments, this is endless. And with every day we're getting more. Life is generous. So how can this be cleared? What, by endless therapy? That is possible. You can go through therapy forever and ever. But if you don't introduce this magical component, something tremendous is missing. Something that works like a miracle. That whole mass of darkness is dispelled by a single lamp, you see? Now, what is the single lamp? It is the light, this light that is hidden deep inside the inner cave. It is the light of consciousness. If you become awakened to the light of consciousness that you are, the knowledge of the awareness that you throw on the world and make it possible, then it is like bringing a tremendous light into the picture, and this dispels the darkness. So our own clear light mind instantly dispels ignorance, harm, and obscuration that are amassed over eons. Why? Because it immediately tells you that you are already healed, that you are already free, that you are freed from the process. As soon as you have introduced this inner light, you can work on traumas and on memories and do therapy, but then it would be like working on bruised bodies, you see. It is as simple, because it is not you. It is important to take care of the health of the body. It is important to take care of the health of the psyche, right? The superficial layers, that means taking care. But you don't need to do that so desperately because you are free. So then there is the urgency, the dependency is not there. Because everything that you will ever do takes place on the foundation of this very subtle mind. That's why essentially meditation is therapy. It's the first therapy. Everything else flows from it. So have you been aware throughout all these years? Naturally, right? Otherwise you cannot even report experiences. You cannot know that anything has happened, in which case you are already also free, but ignorantly. Because you were unconscious, but you were not unconscious. There was always this light. And there is also this light right now. Now, the revolution begins when you look back into this light and try to get a sense of it. What is it? What is this thing that is continuously aware? What is this thing that is the light that throws itself over the world? When there is a contact between this and the flower, there is attention, right? Behind this attention, there is awareness. So when you get in touch with this awareness, you reveal something extraordinary, because you find something that is perfectly innocent. Innocent in the sense, not in the sense of naive, because you can be completely practical and understand things of the world. But in the sense of untouched, unconditioned. In the sense of unwrinkled, you see? So this is our basis for starting everything anew. And it is not about starting everything anew once. It means that you always have this kind of beginning point, this point that doesn't accumulate. So you can always start anew, you see. It's always available. And this is what saves us from growing bitterness and hardening and closing, you see. That we reach a point which sometimes feels too late for us to reconnect. So I know that this is a very perhaps overly simple point, you see, because it sounds so ridiculously available, the fact that we are aware right now, and that this awareness is the very beginning, you see. It's freshness itself, it's innocence, it's timelessness. But this ridiculously simple solution is actually that deep if you just take a look into it. So let's see if there are questions. I know there are questions. So let's receive some questions. Those watching online, of course, are more than welcome to ask. I'm aware that I have one. Okay. Let's wait with this question because it is not so directly related. Let's hear. Okay, we'll start here. Yes, Tobias.
Thank you, first of all, for this beautiful talk. I found it very touching. I actually even just write a song that's called Start Anew. That was really a good fit.
That's good.
I'm doing
Yes.
a clear light meditation now every night before going to bed for about almost 2 months.
Okay.
And I wonder how important the drop really is. Because when I focus on this area, I cannot really differentiate clearly these different layers of the heart. If I focus on it, it's more space that opens. It's never concentrated, also with inner fire. I really have issues on concentration of energy. It's really, I focus on an area and it's opening up. So my question is, do I miss a point? Is there something important in the concentration?
Okay, so the question is, you are saying that you are practicing every night. Let's say we will call it a complex form of the meditation that we had today, because this is an elaboration, rather an intense elaboration of the inner cave, which is called clear light. So you are asking about whether we need to concentrate very deeply in that point, in the form of the drop, right? This concentrated point that contains everything. Well, first of all, it should be said the drop is there, whether we concentrate it on it or not. You see, the drop is an energetic element that when it unfolds, when it expands, it actually contains with it, you discover that it contains with it the entire universe. It is the consciousness of the entire universe, and this is what is so marvelous, and this is why in clear light meditation we visualize how we are dissolving the entire universe into this point in the heart. It is basically a metaphor for a certain reality, for an enlightened realization that takes place. So we're just practicing it. Now, and the second reason for concentration on a certain dot or a certain drop is that the concentration on one tiny point gathers the entire energy of the mind and also the prana, you see. It is, everything is drawn, the smaller the point, the greater the intensity, the greater the capacity to gather the energies. However, don't make it hard, you see, because that would then create a conflict in the meditation. If you feel, perhaps you have a certain notion about this, that you actually need to locate an exact point inside that is very concentrated or drop-like, you see, and that it has to be there. It's not like that. It is more like a feeling, you see. So then when you understand that it is more like a feeling, it doesn't have to be so concentrated and so strongly visualized. Any kind of visualization that we are meant to maintain in meditation always has to be something in between a feeling and an actual vision. You see, if we have too much vision, that is unbalanced. If it is completely abstract, it is also unbalanced. So it's always something between feeling and picture. You see, and then you have no attachment. You are in a perfect middle way that doesn't create tension, but also that doesn't create looseness, scatteredness. So, yes. Yes. Yes.
Question from Lydia.
Yes, Lydia.
When there is more and more awareness of consciousness and thus more and more bliss, is it normal that simultaneously in an unconscious state it feels even more dark, as if the unconscious state becomes hellish in a sense?
Read again, please.
When there is more and more awareness of consciousness and thus more and more bliss, is it normal that simultaneously in an unconscious state it feels even more dark, as if the unconscious state becomes hellish in a sense?
I would say you're in trouble. You're in trouble because there is always a quote, a sentence that I like quoting of a certain Canadian teacher. He's a living Canadian teacher. His name is John de Ruyter. And he says, waking up is not necessarily easy. You get to see why all this time you chose to sleep. You see? And I love this sentence because it means that waking up is not just the wonder of waking up, but also the awareness of ignorance, you see? And that is not the fun part. And the greater the light, the greater the pain or that we experience when we fall into ignorance. You see, because we become so much more sensitive that we suddenly know what it means, how full and how deep life is when it is steeped in awareness, and how shallow and how forgetful or pointless life is when it is without awareness, because awareness makes life real. You see? Awareness makes life real. Without it, life is a dream. Sometimes people say life is a dream anyway, but this is not true. Life is real when there is awareness. You see? A flower finally becomes real when there is awareness, because that is the missing half of life. Life always goes together, awareness and experience, awareness and phenomena. This is how life exists in completeness. And we are there to acknowledge that. So yes, there is a growing sensitivity, and that is sometimes painful because we feel the contraction. But here is then where we should be also forgiving. You see, because if I forget I become forgetful, and suddenly life is devoid of awareness, and there is pain. Then there is also self-condemnation. Then there is also worry or self-beating. I reproach myself. Be aware. Where is your awareness? Where is your enlightenment? And so on and so on. And that creates further conflict and certainly doesn't help darkness to dissipate, you see. You cannot dissipate darkness with darkness. And self-condemnation is darkness, you see. Self-reproach, anger, it's again tightening. It's also when I say, I must be awakened now. Now, this makes me like this, right? On the contrary, I need to ask myself, what happens when I don't try to be awakened now? Then suddenly it is here, you see? Because awakening is the least amount of intervention on our part. It is when you reach the minimal intervention, you have reached the most delicate state. You hold your hand like this. Then whether it is right now a moment full of awareness or a moment full of darkness, suddenly it is not even important, you see? What is important is your approach. So if instead of condemning or trying, you are at that moment of darkness, you become aware, you bring back the lamp, you see? You make it return because you're not tightening, you're not dividing yourself at that moment. So then inside darkness, light is revealed. Do you understand? Don't try to dispel the darkness. Simply, very gently, very silently, open up in its presence, in its midst. Yes. Yes.
A question from Nicole.
Yes, Nicole.
Do you have any advice on how I can support the process of identity or ego dissolution? With the personal self dying, it brings up tremendous fear, emptiness, a feeling of no meaning and purpose to live. How to deal with feeling this void and emptiness that I often struggle with. Before, there was so much creativity, inspiration, and will to live. Now everything feels blank, empty, and there is no will coming through to do anything. It feels scary to the human psyche to live without an identity.
Can you just reread the first two sentences, please?
Do you have any advice on how I can support the process of identity or ego dissolution? With the personal self dying, it brings up tremendous fear, emptiness, a feeling of no meaning and purpose to live.
Okay. I think that the answer lies at the core of your question, you see, because you describe fear. As long as there is fear, fear of the emptiness, we cannot discover the nature of emptiness, you see? The emptiness remains blankness. Emptiness and blankness, they have nothing to do with one another. You see? What is blankness? Blankness is something that is nothing, that is not anything. For instance, there is not a feeling. This is blankness. Now, emptiness has nothing to do with that, of course. Emptiness is, how can the emptiness that is all-pervading, that contains the whole universe, that everything is saturated in it, that is the secret engine behind every active and creative movement in the universe, the source of prana, that is life force, and all excitement, all urge to live, how can this be blankness, you see? It is something, it is bubbling. Emptiness is supreme, has supreme forces. It is the source of all creativity. But then if we are afraid of the emptiness, we are afraid of ego dissolution, we are worried, then we cannot realize that we can never come into contact with this realization that real life comes from real death, you see. So try once to love this ego dissolution and to love even the fear. You see, it is as if you're loving both, but you're none. You're not the fear. You're not the ego dissolution. You're just the one saying yes because of your love of the divine, because of your love of truth. Focus on the positive. Focus on the meaning of what you do and why you do it. Because we do this, when we do this not because we are emptying ourselves in some kind of a brutal way. It's love, you see? It's love of truth, it's love of life. Perhaps even for some of you, it's love of God, if this word doesn't terrify you, or the divine, or the source of life, whatever. So then it is not just emptying into emptiness, it is emptying into somethingness, into fullness. And that is a sacred moment, you see. Then it's a celebration. Ego dissolution is not really death. It is just the removal of something that is dead, you see, that is non-existent. You are there for life, right? Ego is just a bundle of memories, dead memories. Ego is dead identity. It is weaved from dead materials, from images, from self-images, from false ideas about oneself. So focus on why you do it. And then there will be something that is bigger than the fear. And the something that is bigger than the fear is love. And the act of ego dissolution is love. It is love of inseparability. It's the love of being inseparable. But be warned, because in the presence of this love, one can become even more creative. Because then one gets in touch with the creative engine of the universe itself, and it begins to pound in one's body, in one's heart, in one's mind, and drive them toward new creativity, not the creativity of egos. There's plenty of energy behind ego identity, plenty. People build and ruin the world because of egos, you see. Ego is such a powerful energy. But I think that love also builds the world. It did it in the first place. Yes, please.
I actually wanted to ask a different question, but now you said there's so much power behind the ego.
Yes.
And so I was immediately thinking, there's no resolution, so there's so much creation through the forces the ego has, like good and bad, but there's no resolution in that creation, right?
What do you mean? There is no resolution.
Since it's like something's being created from a place of hurt or a wound,
Yes.
there's no resolution, so the creation itself is it's not gonna end up in the feeling you wish for, so that's why the thriving becomes like endless and not like the satisfaction doesn't happen, or this was just what I thought. And then when you create from love, I mean, there's no resolution either, I guess, but more peace in the process.
Okay, so you're making a distinction that when we are, that the reason perhaps that we are, there is an insatiable energy behind ego ambition, right? And you say that perhaps it is because it's like we can never resolve the thirst, right? The conflict, and we keep trying, and this becomes like a tireless engine, right? It makes us.
But
Yes.
Then, sorry, then I think also this is embedded in love, right?
The whole process,
Yes.
is it embedded in love?
Yes, it is.
Everything is embedded in love. Yes, this is what is so extraordinary about life. Yes, because from that point, there is love and awareness. They also make encompass or embrace or include or contain or allow also ego-driven actions. Yes, and also our search. Yes.
Okay, and this actually brings me back from my initial question.
Okay.
So when you were talking about the cave,
Yes.
and then the mind that's always like these parts that are untouched. Are they gateways?
What do you mean by great gateways?
Because I was so now it's like this general thing. Everything is love, and the ego and these structures are embedded in the love, and then
Okay.
like everything is in love, and then it comes back to the physicality.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
body
Yes.
is the cave. So and then you have
Okay, so you're asking whether this physical point or this also the very subtle mind, right?
Yes.
Which are basically the same. Yes, it's one, it's not two.
Okay.
This is the beautiful thing. When it comes to consciousness, mind and heart are just one. You see? It's not really two. It's not that there is the mind, there is the heart. It's what we call the mind that we suffer from is the gross mind, is the superficial layer. But then the very subtle mind resides in the heart. It begins there, you see? This is the root of the mind.
Yeah.
So then you're asking whether this is a gateway. Yes, this is a gateway. This is a very significant one.
Because I was wondering the center of the being and like how can the being's formless, so why is there?
Of course. Yes, but we are not formless completely, right? This is the beautiful thing. We exist just in a meeting point between form and formless, right? So in the middle, there is the subtle body. There is an energy structure. This energy structure is there in order to mediate, to connect the invisible formless and the form. You see? So what the sages of the past did was that they found these certain points and described them. For instance, the inner cave of the heart. Yes. And it's actually quite extraordinary to realize how many traditions have referred to the fact that knowledge or truth or reality, they are hidden inside the heart. Yes. And I think we somehow know that. We always refer to our deepest types of deepest type of knowledge, deepest type of understanding, deepest type of realization, that we always say, I feel it in the heart, I know it in the heart, this is what my heart knows. Somehow we intuitively share this realization that our true mind, true recognition or remembrance doesn't start here, you see? It's not a brain matter. Yes?
Question from Vivian.
Yes, Vivian.
I followed Shai's advice to practice being fully present for 5 minutes a day. There is an almost unbearable joy that arises within me that is greater than I am. Up until now, I've always sought stillness, that my still state is without any struggle. But this great joy is absolutely not still. It wants to express itself. It feels a bit like when you're sitting in school and you have to learn, but you are not allowed to. So what now? I'm a little unsure.
6 minutes? That will be the minute that will complete the picture. First of all, thank you for following an advice. Sometimes it is difficult for us in our hectic life and scattered attention to even determine to dedicate 5 minutes every day to awareness, you see? So then we start very confident, very determined, and then after the third day we suddenly forget the 5 minutes, although it's just 5 minutes. And we spend so many 5 minutes on so many silly things, but somehow we never find those 5 minutes to this kind of practice. Therefore, this is this is the beauty, because if we can just start with this, we will realize how 5 minutes because awareness is such a condensed, such an intense energy, it flows into the day. It begins to pour into the other moments. So your question is not about that. Your question is about the fact that you are experiencing a certain joy that is overflowing and that is not still in the sense of wanting to meditate, but in a sense of explosive energy. So this is in a way Nicole's complementary question, because on the other hand we hear about a different type of response. First of all, that is beautiful because you are getting in touch with the connection between awareness and life force. When there is awareness, there is energy, you see. That's why when we sit here in this room, we experience usually a sense of heightened energy that is usually not experienced in our daily life. The room is filled with something, and this something is our awareness. So when there is this explosive energy, there is also a feeling of overflow. And this overflow begins to vibrate inside our body, and yes, we can dance it, we can write it, we can write poems, we can share it, we can love it, and so on and so on. However, the next step is to learn how to contain it. That's the thing. And this is not like being a student at school. It's not punishment. It's not do not laugh. It is more about a maturation of our energy field and maturation of presence. Because if we learn how to contain it, it begins to build up inside our being. And the more it builds up inside our being, it begins to expand our being. Then we discover a different form of creativity and expression. It is not creativity and expression in terms of doing. It is creativity and expression in the sense of presence. Suddenly you realize that you can be creative just by being, you see. Being is creative. Every moment is creative. So we have the habit of translating this creativity, creative nature or spirit into a creative action. Don't kill that. Please be creative, but in action. But also say, okay, no, I'm not going to disperse it. You see, I'm going to contain it. I'm going to allow it to build up. And then you feel the intensity. You learn to be a Buddha, you see? A Buddha is like an energy field that keeps vibrating but is completely contained in silence, you see? It is creative without doing anything. It is creative while in silence. Do you want to ask the last question? Okay.
I was wondering if there are different ways to enter this cave, for example, when you're dreaming, or is it
Other ways to enter this cave?
different kind of ways to enter this cave? For example, not through meditation, but when you're sleeping and dreaming?
Well, so the question is whether we can enter the cave also in sleeping and dreaming. This is what they do, for instance, in Vajrayana Buddhism. They actually practice not only this type of focus during the waking state, but also they begin to do this with concentration, trying to insert this into the sleeping state and then into the dream state. So yes, that is completely possible. The more you are keen on doing this, the more it will happen. You see, if you are really directing your attention to this before you go to sleep, and perhaps even when you are, sometimes there are moments in which we might be we are awake for fleeting moments, or we are in a semi-state of semi-sleep, you see, something in between, and then we can always remind ourselves to return to that. Now the thing is that the more you place yourself in the drop, in this inner cave, the light of the inner cave, the less you will dream. You see? You are basically dissolving the dream state. The dream state is a scattered state of the mind. You see? Actually, in energetic terms, it is when the energy escapes the heart, which is when our energies are gathered in the heart. This is deep sleep. But when it escapes to the throat, then it becomes dreams. This is the principle. So the more you do this, the more you are able to one, enter a deep sleep, and second, and that is pretty powerful, become awake while in deep sleep. There is suddenly a sense of wakefulness also in deep sleep. Of course, this requires practice. Yes. Basically, the whole thing about awareness is to break the barrier separating waking state, the sleep state, and dream state. You see, because there is a barrier. It's like they don't meet. Of course, in the dream state, there is a sort of a strange mixture. But the whole thing is how deep sleep enters, breaks and flows into the waking state, and the waking state breaks and flows into the dream state, the sleep state. You see? So that is the secret of the yogi. You are asleep when you are awake. You are awake when you are asleep. What does it mean to be asleep when you are awake? Everyone is just awake, you see, and that's why we are so agitated, we are so troubled, we are so nervous, because we don't have this kind of restfulness. Restfulness that in a way doesn't, while being in life, doesn't engage in life completely. It is as if life is just an experience, but deep inside you, it's as if you're asleep, you see? Asleep in the sense of non-attached. You remain undisturbed. You remain in the very subtle mind. So that is a deep relaxation. And then you somehow experience something very extraordinary. It's as if you are going through life, the experience, but in a sense also nothing happens. You see? And that is remarkable because this is deep sleep. Nothing happens. And everything happens. That's the secret. Now, if you use this key and you return to the inner cave, during action in life, you will quite immediately experience that. This kind of restfulness while in action. Since the question here is very personal, I will answer it personally. Yes. Good. Let's just take one minute, one moment of silence to allow everything that we've experienced, felt, learned, heard, just to gather in our being. So I'm extremely grateful for this sharing. Thank you for being here and for being. Thank you.